This is a short video just to talk about my dust collection system in my shed. My shed's a 4 meter by 8 meter brick construction. It has a low-angled roof with these rafters that you can see here. The dust collector unit that actually generates the suction is in the front corner of the workshop. You can see that here. It's the galvanized collector here. Basically, you can see at the very top of this dust collection system, this is actually an Oneida brand. It's from the mid-90s, probably 96. So it's a pretty old unit. Nonetheless, it seems to do the job. Basically what's going on with this is it's a cyclonic separator with an internal HEPA filter. So the cyclonic separator is basically the first stage. So here you can see this portion here, which is a galvanized component that drops away with these retaining rings. This is the middle section, which actually does the cyclonic separation, and the top section is the motor, which is integrated into the lid, and then inside you can see the simple 12-inch impeller. It doesn't have any fancy geometry. It's just basically a straight impeller, bolted to the brick wall by 2 brackets. I found that to be the simplest and most elegant solution. And then basically this is a freestanding, free hanging unit. I guess it could in principle be supported by the base here, but it's not. That just hangs. And there is some support that I get from the inlet from this PVC pipe. That PVC pipe is the inlet to the dust collector. It's currently also being used to hold hoses, which you can see here, but if I pull back a little bit, you can see that PVC pipe, I tried to get the straightest run that I could before I went to the 45-degree elbow and another 45-degree elbow, which essentially feeds the top trunk in the shed. And this trunk goes down the 8-meter length of my shed and ultimately will be used to service a range of tools, in particular the bandsaw, which generates a great deal of dust, less so chip generation from the jointer, which is my green machine here, and also dust and chips that might be generated by my Triton router table. And of course, another culprit for dust is the table saw. I'm using a Triton 2000 work center. It's an old design, old piece of kit, but it works really well. The other thing that generates a great deal of sawdust is I have a DeWalt sliding compound miter saw. Again, famous for generating dust. So in terms of the collection, you can see from this angle that I have 45 degrees that comes off of my main line, and I've got a 45 degree and another 45 degree that drops down. I am converting at the moment down to a 4-inch simple piece of duct that doesn't do anything. It just basically hangs in space at the moment. You can see that I'm using a rather innovative blast gate design. I'll make another video on those blast gates. But basically that's a pretty simple design, quite elegant, and very few moving parts. Essentially that blast gate you can see there is open. This blast gate, which is further down the line, is closed. And you can tell it's closed because the opening is showing here. If I were to rotate this, that then opens this blast gate, and then you can tell that it's open because this closed portion sits there. If I were to do that, it would open up this line here, and that line then comes over to the opposite wall, where you can see that I have at the moment 2 45-degree sections that will ultimately serve the sliding compound miter saw. I have at the end of the line, as it were, a plug at this point here. You can see that the plug is just closing off the end. In terms of the design philosophy, I guess My main approach was to stick with 150 millimeter or 6 inches as much as I possibly could. The other thinking that I had, of course, based on discussions and lots of reading and viewing online, was to use 45-degree entries. Don't ever use 90-degree fittings. The other thing I've done here is I've used a standard type of bracket, which I simply designed up in SketchUp. This wooden bracket here that you can see, I designed that up in SketchUp, and then I used Matthias Wandel's big print program, and basically I could batch out a number of those supports, and then I anchored them into the wall, and you can see here that it's reasonably secured. They're plenty strong. The ductwork doesn't really weigh that much. It doesn't put much load. I've got another hanger bar there, and I've also modified those hanger bars. You can see here at the front, that hanger bar actually links on to the rafter there, and also this one here goes onto the rafter. So fairly important to stick with a uniform design on things as much as you possibly can. In terms of the blast gates, I've actually got extra blast gates here. Again, I make things in batches typically, so I've got 3 spare blast gates, which I will eventually use down the main trunk to service my other woodworking components. All right, if you've got any questions on that, or you want to leave a comment, that'd be great, and I'm happy to answer any other questions that you might have.